Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking the Silence podcast. I am your host, Sean McBride. Joining me today is Miss Jennifer Richardson,
Hi.
who is a life coach. She is a social media wizard, and we're very proud to have her as our very own face of addiction rehab. Toronto.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Jen, just from getting to know you personally, professionally, I just love the energy you bring. I love that, you have a passion for your cause and for helping others.
Thank you.
We were talking about the cold immersion and the contrast therapy. I really like your story about how you discovered it. Would you mind going into that a little bit?
Of course. So I think, like any of us, when we first come into recovery, you don't really know like what you're doing, and you're trying to find a lot of different things that work. And I was early to sobriety, and I found a group that was going into the water in Lake Ontario, and I live pretty far from there. But I decided for some reason that this is what I wanted to do. So before sunrise, I drove down there and I met with the group. And it was in the middle of February. So I remember they were removing like huge blocks of ice. I went in with a guide, which I really needed and really appreciated. And then I stayed in for 2 minutes. And I think, the thoughts calmed, like everything slowed down. And from that moment on, I bought my own tub, and it has been life-changing for me ever since. It's my own practice and a practice I love to share with other people too.
That's awesome. Do a lot of people that like just organically when you tell them, are they like, what is that? Like,
I think in the beginning, especially then, people were like, "What are you doing?" Even my parents were like, you have like it's cold outside, you shouldn't have wet hair. You have like these like old wives' tales. Um, so people thought I was a little bit crazy, or it could be dangerous. And obviously there are risks to it, but as long as you know what you're doing and you're not swimming in the lake alone, it's definitely for me life-changing, honestly.
that's awesome. No, I love to hear that. And you do that professionally as well, right? With the Cold Community North, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So after I got better at it and I realized it wasn't leaving my life, I decided that if this helped me so much, it's definitely got to help other people. I specifically wanted to pay attention to the mental health and emotional and addiction side of it. So I started Cold Community North, and there we focus on breath work and getting present. And a lot of things can happen when you're in cold water. It moves not only like neurotransmitters and blood flow and all of that, but it moves emotions through the body.
Sure.
So there can be some pretty impactful moments there for sure. And I think like that's happened to me. You can get in and just do it for inflammation and get in quick and get out, but I think it's really important to stay present and quiet the mind.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, quieting our minds, for most of us that either come out of addiction, we're in recovery, that those racing thoughts, and a lot of times we either use a substance or some kind of diversion to still that. So to find something outside the body that's, naturally stimulating, I think that's huge. I gotta ask though, having your own tub at home, do you have like just a massive budget for bags of ice, or like how do
I
you?
do.
Yeah.
I do have ice, but I do also have a chiller on my tub.
Okay.
So keeping it cold in the warmer months, but also keeping the water running when we're in like -30 weather is
Right.
also very
That
important.
makes sense.
So yeah, I have one tub that stays with me, and then I travel with my tubs and my sauna too. So we do events and stuff like that. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
What kind of events have you done?
We've done some really cool events. We have worked music festivals, health and wellness events, outdoor, indoor. We've done bachelorette.
Awesome.
We've done lots of different things. Yep.
That's really cool. It's
Mhm.
definitely a good alternative bachelor party than what usually goes on. So
Right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
this is the
something
thing.
healthy.
Yeah. I feel like kind of switching the mindset of like, it's very empowering when you see the whole group do it together.
For sure.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. We were talking earlier, offline about, how one healthy addiction can override an unhealthy addiction.
Mm.
Do you think that a lot of people just kind of need to source out for themselves the thing that works, or do you think everybody should try cold plunge at least once?
I think everybody should try it at least once for sure. I think you and I were talking about like the dopamine and stuff. It's something that you can't really explain until you feel it. And with there being minimal to no crash in, I just think it's something that everybody needs to feel for themselves. So like if you can just do it just one time, then you might not be sold like the first time, but it's definitely amazing.
That's awesome. You got to get immersed in immersion therapy. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it makes perfect sense to me.
Exactly.
It's so funny because I remember, growing up, like I'm born here, 43 years here, and I hate the cold. And I used to see people doing the polar bear swim, and I was like, what's wrong with you people? And now it's becoming such a health trend.
Yeah.
So I know you go from like sauna 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and then cold 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Do you find that's the best way, or could someone do like just the cold plunge and get the same benefit? Or
Yeah, you could definitely do just the cold plunge and get many benefits. At Cold Community North, I tend to encourage people to start on cold, just like to get your system running and like to have a little bit of that shock therapy. And I also tend to encourage people to end on cold so that we take all of the benefits from the cold, like the dopamine and norepinephrine and your motivation and your to do. Like you're really energized after you get out of the tub.
for
So
sure.
you could just check everything off that to-do list after. And that's my kind of game.
That's awesome. Other than cold, what do you actually feel or experience when you do your deep plunge?
I even though it's only for 2 minutes, I feel like it's obviously feels like a longer time than when you're in the tub.
Yeah,
And I think having just complete clarity and complete presence, you think you might be being present in your day until you're sitting in cold water. And then you just realize, like, wow, this is something that I really, really needed. Something that just shuts the mind off and you are focused on your breath, maybe on a couple things around you. But yeah, it's such a beautiful experience to just have that mind clear and
you're
calm.
definitely selling me. Honestly, because like I said, I mean, in this day and age with so much stimuli around us, and I mean, even if you're just staying at home, like there's always like a trillion and one
Something.
thoughts, and checking your phone, checking your emails, there's always something going on. And even like you said, like I imagine, I think I am going to experience it just for the sake of experiencing it.
Yeah.
But even though it's 3 minutes, like you get that sense of timelessness, right? Because your body is just so overwhelmed with, oh my God, I'm cold and I'm wet.
Yeah.
And you can't really think about anything else.
And you don't have the choice because you go into fight or flight. So you need to slow the breath and extend the exhale. So you need to really pay attention to that. So any other things that are going on in your life, they're gone
It's awesome.
because you're just trying to breathe, right? So,
That's awesome. And I was asking you earlier about, any other hobbies or anything where you find that, you lose yourself. I used to be a big jogger myself.
yeah.
So we were talking about that where, you just get into that rhythm and it's just you and the road and you don't really think about anything else. And before you know it, you've already hit your mark. Do you find it the same or very different, or?
I do find that out of any type of like physical activity, working out, running is the one that brings me the closest to that present state, that runner's high,
Yeah.
Reaching it. And I do tend to like long distance a little bit better and that sense of accomplishment.
Awesome. And your website is
.ca.
getzenwithjen.ca. Yes,
Yeah.
.ca for sure, not org, not com. Got it. Tell me about that. So did that come before you started doing cold plunges, or?
So actually, I started out as a nutritionist and everything was always mood. So at that time, it was mood and food.
I've
And
always found it, they rhyme for a reason. Yeah, absolutely.
so I
Sorry.
did that first. And then that really brought me into the nervous system. And I was really interested in that. And I was in school, but then I also had my struggles on the side. So I tend to use what I learned to help myself along with 12 step. And then I wanted to share it with everybody else. So like it's really all attached. Like the nervous system, you can feed it with food, you can calm it with cold, you can push its limits with working out.
Yeah.
And I think that whole realm of motivation and being your best and expressing yourself and being resilient, it's my thing.
That's awesome. It's your jam. I
It's
love
my
it.
jam.
It's so remarkable to me because it's almost like when we're in active addiction and stuff, we're trying to see how far we can bend our body and our mind in a whole other way.
Mhm.
And then you come out and you start, I find almost everybody I've ever spoken to who goes into recovery, they're very interested in, like you said, like the neuroscience, how the
Yes.
body works, why. It's almost like trying to solve the mystery of why you got into what you got into. Um, if there was one thing, because one of the biggest things I find is that sometimes when people, go into recovery, their motivation to do stuff is very low.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't see a payoff right away, it's like that first time going to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
You're like setting it up in your head that it's going to be the most exhausting thing. And it is usually,
Yeah, for sure.
First 4 or 5 times are hell, What would be a piece of advice you would give to somebody? I mean, other than just get up and do it, because
yeah. So get up and do it,
Yeah.
but also I think one thing that I talk about with my friends that are going or trying to get sober, or anyone I know that's trying to get sober, is like to try and give this new habit as many chances as you gave alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
It didn't happen overnight. We've gone out many, many times. We've tried to get better many times. And I think that if you just realize that it's just the same as healing, but on the other end, you got to just continue to show up. And, I know that's way easier said than done, but yeah, that would be my best advice. Just give it a chance the same way that you did going to the bar or going to the concert or going everywhere else. Give yourself that chance.
So a really good piece of advice. I really like that.
Thank you.
And it's interesting. So I know the website, Get Zen with Jen. What's Zen to you? What do you define as Zen? Sorry, it's a big one.
No, I think, I do think like I find my Zen in moments like alone where it would be like pushing myself the most, which doesn't really seem like Zen, but like in the tub when my mind is quiet, I have a very hard time quieting my mind. So that type of Zen, like I don't find it in a bubble bath or in like a massage or in like it's mostly when I'm doing intense things like running or pushing myself to my limits where I just have that one goal in mind. Or that's my Zen. I know it sounds bad.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't at all. Not at all. I was
That's
just
my Zen.
I was just thinking to myself, I'm much the same way. I find sometimes even, in my job, there's a million and one things to do. And sometimes I find when I'm at that absolute limit, that's where I find the most like mindlessness. So I totally get it. When we push ourselves, you would think that would be the time we're least relaxed, but it's almost like the mind is so overoccupied that you find that. It's interesting to me because the reason I was also asking about other hobbies is because in like Buddhist Zen culture, so mindlessness here means like crazy, out of your mind.
Right.
Whereas in Zen culture, it means like if you're, into knitting, for instance, I brought up knitting earlier. If you're into knitting, sometimes, it can be you feel like it's 5 minutes, but it's like an hour.
Oh, yes. So like you lose.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I was asking you, because like you said, like I find for me when I'm overwhelmed, and I almost want to say positively overwhelmed. It's like that's when I'm in that Zen. So that's why I don't think what you just said about your state of Zen to be anything wild. I think it makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of people out there would understand too, because I think that's a very common thing when you come out of addiction. It's like you need to almost over occupy yourself, and
I agree.
not to just not go to a substance or whatever your addiction was. But I think it's just your mind is still wired to fire very fast, and if you're not occupied, like your motivation goes down. So I think that's great. Do you do like sauna cold, or
I do cold sauna cold. So like I start and end on cold usually, always.
Awesome. And when you're in the sauna, what do you get from that? Is because I imagine obviously it's not as intense. Is it just more relaxed? And
the sauna is the challenge for me. I want you, like anybody who's in the sauna or myself, to find at least a sweat, right? And for me to be able to get there, I'm really like going through it. I want out. I'm over it.
Yeah.
I don't know if like you ever get this feeling when you're hot, like you're annoyed.
Yeah.
Like I don't love the heat. So most like I'm not Zen in there.
You're not Zen.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to like kind of get through it and mentally push through and just tell myself that I can, because I know the physical benefits that will come. But yeah, it's hard for me in the sauna.
Wow.
I don't love the heat.
So essentially, you just kind of summarize the theory of relativity. So when you're doing something you don't like, 3 minutes can seem like an eternity.
Exactly.
When you're doing something that you love, 3 minutes can seem like no time at all. That's awesome.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, because I imagine for me, I'd be much the same way. At least with the cold, you have that overwhelm where it's like you can't overthink. Whereas when you're just sitting in a hot room, it's like...
Yeah, and it's getting hotter and you're sweating and it's uncomfortable. Like it can give you a little bit of a feeling of like being dizzy. So you're like, am I okay? You're convincing yourself you're not so you can get out.
Yeah. You ever tried a deprivation chamber?
I have.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it kind of sounds like in the same way. I've always wanted to try it. Have you done it more than once?
I've done it a couple times.
Yeah.
I actually loved it.
Yeah.
Very similar to the tub where... Well, when I got in, I was like, an hour in here? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's what I always think of. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, gone. And I didn't feel like I had a nap, but I definitely went somewhere else.
That's awesome.
Like, it is super cool. So, like, you're still present and you're aware.
Yeah.
But you're kind of like in another realm.
No, you speak freely. Like, you're talking my language 100%. I do astral travel, lucid dreaming, all that
it's
fun
really
stuff.
cool.
So yeah, and I've heard so many, like I've gone online on like Reddit and stuff and read so many experiences where people say it's like profound and life-changing.
It really is. I think like for me, I got into a tank that I could step into and then lay down. I don't know that I could do like the smaller tanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really loved it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's all about immersion, right?
It is.
Awesome. Well, listen, I mean, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Like I said, you can find Jen on getzenwithjen.ca and also Cold Community North. Anything you want to leave people with before we sign off, or
no?
I think you nailed it. Yeah, you totally nailed it.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thanks. For sure.